and a comment. How is, whatever you do with the new jail, how is the bond paid for? Income taxes or property taxes?
Well, this is not a time for a back and forth, so we
Okay,
can maybe
okay, okay,
address that. But
okay,
again, I'll give you a little bit more of your time back. But again,
okay,
state your name for the record and go ahead with your
okay,
comment.
okay. Jack Speaker. I think we all have noticed that there's been a significant shift to the right in the federal judiciary. I think it might be worth letting a judge decide it because the council and the commission have been working on it for a long time and haven't found an answer that anybody really likes. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Next up, um, Curtis Cummings.
Hello there. My my name is Curtis Cummings, and I work in human social services here in Monroe County. I'm I'm in and out of our courts and jail system, working with individuals and families involved in some of the most difficult moments of their lives. So I want to begin by acknowledging something clearly, like I did last meeting, and that the concerns surrounding the jail are very real. Safe and constitutional conditions do matter. Staff safety matters. Human dignity matters. Monroe County does have a responsibility to act. And I also recognize that current leadership inherited a pretty difficult situation. You know, we can't change what previous leadership was or was not able to accomplish over the last several years, but the county can't continue kicking this problem down the road. I believe leadership is not only about solving today's crisis, but it's about solving today's crisis without limiting tomorrow's opportunities. And that's where my concern about North Park comes in. From the perspective of many of the individuals and families I work with every day, many are facing poverty, transportation issues, not being able to afford bus passes, mental health challenges, and addiction. I do not believe North Park is the best long-term location. At the same time, North Park may also be one of the county's most strategically valuable future development corridors for jobs in retail, restaurants, and long-term tax-based growth. A jail is a very permanent land use commitment. The lawsuit may explain why action is necessary, but it does not automatically answer whether this is the best long-term location. And I also struggle with the idea that site readiness is fixed and not movable. In the private sector, developers create readiness and urgency all the time while still balancing budgets, building infrastructure, and meeting aggressive timelines when the long-term value justifies the investment. I can see a Chicago apartment complex get built in Bloomington in less than a year, and it's taken us this long to build a jail. So I think it's fair for the public to ask whether North Park became the ready option, partly because momentum had already formed around it earlier in the process. And again, I want to be clear, I'm not suggesting the county stop moving forward, but I think current leadership now has to put its developmental hat on and aggressively move this progress forward with urgency, accountability, and transparency. But responsible leadership is not choosing between urgency and strategic planning. Responsible leadership is creating a process that can accomplish both. At the end of the day, my final words are that urgency should inform decision making. It should not replace strategic planning. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we'll go back to the room here. So you're in.
Hi, I'm Misty James. I work for New Leaf New Life. I'm the assistant director there. I don't have a real polished story to tell you guys, but I have a couple real human stories to tell you. I had a client who was released from a rural county jail in the middle of the evening. He walked from that county to here. It took him 9 hours to get here. The weather conditions were terrible. He told me today that he thought he would probably die walking. People drove by, did not stop, and he walked all the way back to Monroe County. He still lives in this county, and he met me at my desk that day, and he took his glove off of his hand, and his hand was so frostbit that we couldn't continue with the appointment, and that we had to take him to the hospital because of his exposure. It is absolutely dangerous. I know this because I work with people who are released from county rural places who have no transportation or no way to get anywhere. And we talk about Ubers and we talk about all the things, but I can assure you that my time in county jail, I had no one to call to come and get me. The second human story I want to tell you about is, if you think about this, I want you guys to think about 2 blocks, okay? 2 blocks. There was a girl who was a victim of the opioid crisis, prescribed oxycodone. And that oxycodone later turned into a heroin addiction that made her unhoused, that kept her sleeping outside for over 5 years. She went to jail, rinse, wash, repeat, numerous times, so many times that I cannot count. And she was released for the last time. And the difference this time was 2 blocks. I walked from the county jail door. That person was me. It's me. I walked from the county jail door 2 blocks. 2 blocks, you guys, to Amethyst. Had I had to walk from Ellisville, you think I would have went? If I had to find a way from another county, you think I would have went? And I'm like, so I think I am well respected in this community, but there was a time when I had nobody to call to come and get me from jail, you guys. Nobody. I beg you guys not to do this to our community members. There is other answers. Pour into resources. There are so many Misties sitting in that jail that 2 blocks will change their life and their direction. Thank you for your time. Sorry for crying.
No,
that was
don't be
really
sorry.
weird.
Don't be sorry.
Hi, my name is Matthew Joseph. I've been a resident here for 7 years, first school and then after. I speak in disapproval of a new jail. Let's not be speculative about what the outcome of a new jail is. Let's look at what other communities have already gone through when this has happened. In Missouri, they faced the exact same problem, an overcrowded jail. They spent more than hundreds of millions of dollars on a new jail with the hope that it would maintain capacity for more than 10 years. It was overcrowded again in 2 years. They again had to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on another bigger jail. Please look up this happened. And so I want you to imagine us all sitting here again in 2 years after this gets built, being in the exact same scenario. And why did this happen? How did it accelerate so quickly, right? 10 to 2. And it's already been talked about, right? Research has shown that police are tougher on crime when a jail has lots of space. But why does that happen? Okay, consider this. Look at all that we have gone through to make this decision. You know that they're going to make it their mission to justify the fact that we paid hundreds of millions of dollars and burden our taxpaying community. We are incentivizing him to say, we need a new jail. See, guys? See, county council members, see, general public, we need a new jail. We are incarcerating more and more people, and we're getting full. His budget and his name relies on this being a successful project. And success means another filled jail. And what are the other options, right? This is what I want us to consider, right? We already have diversionary programs, problem-solving court, et cetera. If we put a fraction of this money into those, I think that would be an incredible option. And why not assess who's in the jail currently? Who's there for petty theft? Who's there for marijuana? Who needs substance use? Currently, I actually do intakes at the probation office. I met a lady today who was in jail for stealing a car while she was in active psychosis and actively grieving the death of 3 family members who died in the matter of weeks from each other. Jail did not help. You know what she said helped? EMDR, an evidence-based treatment for trauma. What? Wow. Fascinating. So can we let this moment make us question how we incarcerate? We can put pressure on our community to think about new options. We can get creative than the simple-minded and expensive excuse for a solution. Picture us in 2 years facing the exact same problem today if we don't make a right decision today. Let's not make a mistake that other communities have already learned. We're a smart city. We're a creative city.
That is your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we will go back to teams. Hopi, you now should be able to unmute and state your name for the record. You'll have up to 3 minutes.
Hi, this is Hopi Stassberg, and I am City Council representative for District 3. And I just want to say, about a month ago, City Council passed a resolution continuing to support the no vote that you guys originally had regarding North Park. And we had lots of reasons why, and community members have shared a lot of those reasons tonight. And I'm sure that you guys have read the resolution, so I don't need to repeat that, but I do need to say that I was dismayed when I saw a press release that had the council president listed as though the council had made some sort of different decision, or as though he represents more than just himself. Okay, so city council, just like county council, we all represent ourselves. We cannot represent the whole body unless the whole body has had some sort of an action or resolution about it, or a public discussion about it. And our last public discussion about it was, I believe, unanimously in support of a no vote on North Park, and the support of keeping jail within the city limits as close to centrally located as possible. And I just wanted to make that clear tonight, that the statement put out yesterday does not represent me, and as it was written, only represents one council member, and other city council members can make whatever decisions they want to on this. But I wanted to make that clear about myself. Thank you very much and have a great night.
Thank you. Next up is Richard Garza.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you for your time. My name is Richard Garza. I worked in the Justice Center last summer. My comments right now are about buying the land. I hear a lot of conversation tonight about the merits of arresting less people, improving public services, jails in general, and the incarceration process. My comments are only about buying the land. Please vote yes. In August, the estimated cost of building this facility was $224 million. The inflation rate between then and April is about 2.79%, about $6.2 million just because of inaction, which breaks down to about $966 an hour just because this is still being deliberated. It will cost taxpayers even more if you vote no. Why would bus routes go to an empty field? It's going to take about 5 years to build this thing, so I'm sure a bus stop can be added in that. The incarceration rate is low because the beds don't exist. They're either being moved somewhere else or perhaps released before they should be. I've heard a lot of finger pointing going on tonight. I point my finger at everyone who has kicked the can down the road. Everyone that has spoken up today against the jail or against buying the property, they should run for office. They should volunteer their time at the jail, or maybe even open up their homes to those who shouldn't be in jail and just need a place to get back on their feet. A standard is not what is communicated. A standard is what is tolerated. If it was not for this lawsuit and our Constitution, the county probably would not have done anything to improve the conditions for those incarcerated individuals or the people who have worked in that building since the lawsuit started. That, to me, does not sound concerning, caring, or humane. If this process to build the jail had started 10 years ago, imagine what the county could have done with all that time, money, and energy spent on this issue, but applied to other things. Everything that could have been has been wasted on circular conversations that end up being forgotten because whoever asked those questions and made decisions along the way, they're no longer in office. And each generation of officials has just kicked the can down the road, asking critical questions and waiting for answers, but apparently those answers hasn't been shared with future officials. And for other people in the room that have heard, there's enough procedural checks, balances, and obstacles in place that have forced the decision-making process to take this long. Every question that has been asked tonight has been asked and answered before. We are here today as a result of those questions, answers, and decisions. The questions I hear are great, but they've been asked and answered before. Enough is enough. Approve the purchase agreement. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, next up, we had two already, so I'll go here to the Net Eagle room. So if they're, again, please go ahead and start lining up, and you'll sign your name, state your name for the record, and you'll have up to 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Sam Holdeman. I am here to ask you to vote no on North Park. I think we need to start by understanding why people are in jail, as other public commenters have brought up. People are in jail because we live in a state and a society that has criminalized poverty. What I hear is that you are scared about what a federal judge could force you to do, and so you are preemptively doing more than they could ever force you to. They cannot force you to build on a specific site. They cannot force you to build a specific size jail, and they cannot force you to build a new jail, period. The logic seems to be that if you placate them now, they will treat you kindly in the future. That will not work. What they will do is make use of the giant jail you hand them to lock up anybody they don't like. A new jail is being presented as a final solution, as a way of washing our hands of this whole not once and for all, and I get why you would want to do that. It's taken up a lot of your time. It's not an easy problem, but a new jail is not actually a final solution. We don't get to build a new jail and then walk away from it and the issue is solved. The new jail will be full very quickly. We will be facing overcrowding again. We will be open to fresh litigation as soon as a new jail is built. Building a new jail does not mean that we're like magically no longer under any legal obligations or immune to lawsuit. But I'm also not asking you to do nothing. As Councilmember Piedmont Smith mentioned earlier, paraphrasing approximately, but public safety is not arresting people. Public safety is providing access to housing, to healthcare, to jobs, to transportation. And you as the council, as the county's financial body, have the power to do that. So I am asking you to make a decisive commitment to funding housing, healthcare, transportation, and our overall economic prosperity in this county. If you build a giant new jail, you simply will not be able to do that. Your hands will be tied, and you'll be left figuring out how to make the most of the change that is left you. So I ask you to take the decisive step and vote no on North Park, and instead to vote towards spending our county resources on our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Seth Muchler, resident of Monroe County. I'm going to try to keep this kind of brief. I know it's a long night. I have the privilege of actually serving on the board of directors of New Leaf New Life, so I just want to take a moment to say thank you so much to Heather and Misty for sharing their stories. And I can tell you that that is only really the tip of the iceberg of their knowledge and their expertise and their compassion and the gifts that they give to this community and to the people who have previously been incarcerated or are incarcerated in Monroe County. I really am kind of struck by there's kind of two different things being said here. The people who are asking you to vote yes, notably the commissioners and the sheriff, are really speaking about a lot of what ifs, a lot of could be's. Well, we don't know what a judge could make us do. We don't know what could happen. But what I'm hearing from a lot of the people who are speaking and asking you to vote no on this is a lot of concrete. It's those personal anecdotes that you heard. It's the facts and figures given by people, and it's the actual solutions that will make our community better. And so I just would ask you, please, to listen to sort of the folks here who are bringing these sort of real, tangible solutions to this problem, and not to sort of give in to what I'm just going to say plainly and simply I see as threats and fear-mongering from the other sort of side of this discussion. So I hope that you vote no on this North Park purchase today. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, next I'll pop back over to teams. So first person up is John Hamilton. Again, state your name for the record and you'll have up to 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Can you see me and hear me? It's
Yes.
John Hamilton. Thank you. I am a county resident and former mayor. I appreciate everybody, their time. There are many, many good people in the room tonight doing good things. I'm sorry I can't be there in person, but I just wanted to make a few points. I did submit a written statement to many of you. I hope it could be included in the record. I won't read it. But one of the most important things was just reminding us, the late Charlotte Zitlow and I and many other people 7 months ago discussed this same issue and urged that we not buy the big property for a big new jail. And the county council unanimously agreed, and I greatly appreciate that, as the city council unanimously spoke. I guess I might want to say, I'm asking you to vote no on this again, but I also think that no vote can include several yeses, because it is important to move forward together, as has been said. I believe this is a really important pivot point for our community, and the yeses can include the following. The yes should include a uniform, unanimous view that we want constitutional incarceration services. We are all committed to that. Some may think that exists now. Those who think it does not exist now, I believe, should be asking for more money, more staff. Many of us, Charlotte and I, and many of you have been urging that money be invested in better services years ago. And that should be a yes today. We are committed to constitutional services. The jail we have is going to be the jail we have for several years. So we ought to be doing that kind of investment. And that should be a yes tonight from all of us. Another yes should be we ought to immediately invest in funds to improve the human services. There are many people in our community doing great things to improve the lives of people who otherwise might be incarcerated. You've heard from several of them. Again, for many years, many of us have been urging that money, $20 million a year that's coming in now, should be invested now to improve those services. That's a yes that can happen. Another yes that can happen is to say, let's set a goal. Let's say we want 150 residents in our jail in 10 years. Not the 200 plus that we have now, certainly not the 300 that we had several years ago. Let's set a positive goal. And yes, what will it take to get us there? And if we set that kind of goal, we have a very, very different process, which can begin. How would we build a jail for 150 people in 10 years, and what kind of services will get us there? The last other thing I would say is a yes, and some of us have urged this for some time too, is to just say, for every dollar we put into new incarceration costs, let's be sure we put a new dollar into diversion and service costs that will reduce incarceration. You are being told that you have no choice. That is just not true. A no vote is really important, moving us in the right direction. Charlotte and I talked about that. Many of you in the room did as well. Many people are working hard.
Is your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Next up, screen name Alice Silver.
Can you hear me?
Yes, if you could speak up a little bit because it's a little faint.
Okay, right there.
Yes, yep, just state your name for the record and you'll have up to 3 minutes.
Okay, good evening. My name is Alice Silver. I'm a resident and I'm a mom of 4 small children, and I live 3 minutes from the North Park location. We keep hearing officials use fear to justify this project. They say people shouldn't be released because of safety, but at the same time, they want to place these facilities near our neighborhoods and near our children, 3 minutes from where my children play. If these individuals are not safe, then why are residents expected to feel safe with this happening in the middle of our neighborhoods? And let's be honest, that I have another concern, and a lot of our neighbors have the same concern. How can we know this is not going to become a nice detention facility or just be used to target the immigrant population or the unhoused communities? We need to know what agencies can be involved once you build this giant facility, who is involved, and what protection exists for our residents. Instead of pushing this jail to get done, you should be pushing new businesses, new facilities, things that make our life easier and better. You also keep referencing the ACLU, but where in that lawsuit says that we need brand new state-of-the-art courtrooms, sheriff office, or a millionaire-style government complex? Improving conditions for inmates is one thing, but building new expensive spaces is something different. Right now, a lot of people feel ignored, but we want safe neighborhoods and we want honest answers, and that's not extreme. People need to know that this money to buy this and to build this does not exist. We don't have the money. This is debt. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up in the room.
Good evening, counselors. My name is Susan Easton. I'm a resident of the Stony Brook neighborhood, and my husband and I have lived there for the past 22 and a half years. Along with the 23 other residences in Stony Brook, I stand opposed to the new jail located at the North Park site. We believe that the Thompson site is the better choice for the taxpayer. Our documented and loudly repeats what other tax-paying citizens and social services organizations have stated. Firstly, fiscal stability. Secondly, accessibility and social justice, which is a key factor in reducing recidivism and helping to improve public safety. And thirdly, concurrent progress versus sequential delay. I was up here 2 weeks ago. Tonight, I'm up here really to thank you for your extreme patience as the county commissioners continuously attempt to promote North Park versus other logical thought processes. Secondly, want to thank you for your continued request of financial data as you fight for each taxpayer dollar being spent now and in future generations. And lastly, and ultimately, thank you for your perseverance in opposing in your opposition to the new jail for those of you that continue to vote no, and the impending justice complex center that will come in the future. It's not just the jail today. It's not just the new jail today. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody here in the Net Uho room would like to make public comment on this item?
Thank you for letting me speak this evening. My name is Mike Shields, born in Bloomington, Indiana, 1946, stayed in Bloomington, Indiana, 2026. Have no plans to leave, love my city. I back the police. I really do. I love the police, behind them 100%. I don't know what the answer to this is, but I can tell you what the answer is not. Building on North Park. 43 years ago, I built a new home 1 mile from there. Quiet. Today, we have a real nice facility with ambulances 24/7. Sirens, sirens, sirens. We're going to get the same thing from the police department. Right here in this article, it says the council, the staff, sheriff, and the board of commissioners can comment securing better safety and more constitutional conditions for the people housed in Monroe County Jail, while in protecting Monroe County from the financial and legal consequences of further delay. How about the people that live around there? We're not even mentioned. You're going to take care of the people in the jail, but what about the residents? I don't think we can feel safe with that out there like that. You've got a real traffic problem. Highway 46, nobody's mentioned that. I can't imagine what that would be. And then you've got a elderly facility real close by that will affect. We probably need a jail, but we probably need to be a little more reasonable about what we're doing here. That's a lot of money. My taxes are going to go up. I'm old, I'm retired. I don't want to pay more taxes. I want to be safe, but I don't want to pay more taxes. And all I can say is North Park is not it. Find something better. I don't know what the answer is, and I hope we find something, but this is not it.
I'm gonna pop back here to Teams. Screen name Cheryl.
Hello.
Hi, we
my
can
name
hear
is-
you.
Oh, can you hear me? My name is
Yes.
Carol Langdon. I'm a citizen of Monroe County. I was there the last meeting. Again, I'm going to point out a couple of things that I agree with. I agree with Mr. Garza. I think he made a lot of great logical points, and it sounds understandable. The last gentleman that just spoke made some great points, because here on Vernal Pike, we were put up, by two different chambers of commerce, Bloomington and Ellisville, and thrown under the bus as a Hail Mary. No one cared about that being in our front yard, backyard, and bedroom windows. So it's funny how it's not my backyard for everybody, but I agree with that last gentleman. And then John Hamilton, the ex-mayor, gee, I don't know, you opened up the door to welcome people that have addiction problems, that are homeless, that are struggling. And now the Monroe County taxpayers have to pay for the welcome mat that Mr. Hamilton put out there. So with all that being said, maybe it is better that a federal judge has something to say. I didn't have a problem with it being at North Park, because we are going to grow. I don't see an issue with the whole ICE thing. I think that's paranoia. 1 minute someone doesn't want it in their yard, but they're trying to say that it's going to be used for ICE. Are you saying that what ICE does and who they pick up is dangerous or not dangerous? I'm a little confused, because everyone is in every direction. So honestly, I don't want it over here outside of the city of Bloomington. Mayor Hamilton made that all happen. It should stay in the city of Bloomington, in my opinion, and keep it their problem. Mayor Hamilton made that happen. Thank you.
Thank you. So next up we have, excuse me, R. Miller. R. Miller, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. State your name for the record, and you'll have up to 3 minutes.
Great. I was having a hard time unmuting.
It's okay.
Renee Miller, thank you for your time this evening. I appreciate it. This body has already voted no on this location, and if people are pushed and bullied or scared, they vote in ways not always in all's best interests. I think we see that on a national level, don't we? So surely by now, people know what no means. I know as a woman, I sure as heck know what the word no means. It's a refusal. Stop asking our county government to waste their time yet again on this poor location. We need social services close by. This isn't going to work. Also, I'd just like to point out, just because someone is arrested does not mean they are guilty. Statistics show that over 70% of people being held in jail haven't been convicted of any crimes. So I want you to think about that. We don't need a larger jail. We certainly don't need one farther away from the downtown area. Thank you for your time.
I will come back to the room here.
Hi, my name is Jamie Ford. I'm a Monroe County resident. Good evening, Council. I've been following this jail issue for a long time now, and since I wasn't even living in Indiana at the time this lawsuit was originally filed, I've tried to do my own research and read up on the history of this whole thing. Based on what I've seen, both historically and in statements from the commissioners, I have more questions than answers. First, in the 12th May Council meeting, Commissioner Madeira makes a statement about the Thompson property saying, which I'm quoting from the CATS TV YouTube transcript of the meeting, quote, "Here are the issues with that property," speaking about Thompson. "The City Plan Commission and the City Council must approve a change to the Plan Unit Development, or PUD. We can't proceed without that approval." My question is the City of Bloomington's, quote, Ordinance 02-16 to amend the preliminary plan for the Thompson area planned unit development that was passed and signed in August of 2002 still in effect? Granted, I don't know specifically what exact area Tract D of the Thompson property is or how big it is, but the synopsis on the second page underneath the signatures from the then Common Council President, Clerk, and Mayor, it states, quote, "This ordinance amends the preliminary plan for Tract D of the Thompson area planned unit development to allow for juvenile and adult corrections and rehabilitative facilities and a range of institutional uses. This ordinance also changes the shape of Tract D and amends some of the developmental conditions," end quote. This means that in addition to the county purchasing the Thompson property for a jail, as confirmed by a Herald Times article dated December 14th, 2002, the City of Bloomington, at least at one time, approved a PUD change for the purposes of building a jail on the Thompson property. Is this PUD still valid? Did the commissioners try to renew or update it? If not, why? Second, I'm disturbed by what can be at best described as a misrepresentation of the truth, or in my opinion, an outright lie from the commissioners. At the last council meeting on May 12th, Commissioner Madeira gave the following statement, which again I'm quoting from the CATS TV YouTube transcript. Quote, "We've done our due diligence investigating properties across the county," end quote. She then mentions the Fullerton and Thompson properties, et cetera, and the various issues. Yet in the comment section of a post related to the jail lawsuit on her own public Facebook page approximately a week later, she contradicts what she said in the meeting. A fellow Monroe County resident was asking questions and making statements in favor of choosing the Thompson property since the county already owns it. Commissioner Madeira responds, citing the most recent ACLU extension agreement, as well as, quote, "A decision for Thompson at this point is irresponsible since we don't have our due diligence done on that site," end quote. The Monroe County resident responds again, still in favor of Thompson. Commissioner Madeira replies, quote, "That's one reason why we're in this situation. North Park is the only site we have due diligence on. It's the site that the county chose beforehand," end quote. Again, in a statement to this council in a public government meeting, Commissioner Madeira said that the commissioners had done their due diligence on various properties, and Commissioners Thomas and Jones didn't correct her or didn't amend it or say it was accurate. Yet on a public social media page a week later, Commissioner Madeira states that the only due diligence was done for North Park. My question for that is, what is the truth? Have they done their due diligence or have they not? It seems that Monroe County does already have the property, and if the PUD is valid, then we have what we need to proceed with the Thompson property. I'll point out that to the best of my knowledge, the commissioners have not proposed a plan to remedy the currently unconstitutional conditions.
And that is your time, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, thank you. All right, next up.
Hi, my name is Kathleen Paquette. I'm a resident of Monroe County. I'm sorry, my thoughts might be a little bit jumbled today. I've just been taking notes as we've been sitting here. But I think it's important to point out for those watching online that Commissioner Thomas left as soon as public comment started. I think that that's telling. The sheriff's presentation was intended to convince you all to move forward with North Park. For me, it did the opposite. I'm sorry, Sheriff. The sheriff says that the numbers are going up. To me, that's the crisis that needs intervention. He talks about public safety. We are in a housing unaffordability crisis, and our state has just passed a law criminalizing homelessness. That is the crisis that needs intervention. Our most vulnerable neighbors are in danger of being thrown into jail. That is the crisis that needs intervention. I understand that lawsuits are expensive and scary, but I can't help but wonder if some of this is a little bit of a manufactured crisis to force consent for this, because to me, I see crises elsewhere. And considering the amounts of money we're talking about with hundreds and hundreds of $millions on a new jail, the lawsuit seems cheaper. Also, the statement issued by the commissioners, City Council President Asari and Mayor Thompson, says that no one should pretend that North Park is the outcome anyone hoped for. And then continues to outline all of the reasons that North Park is a bad site. There's an admission in that document that this is a doubling down of a bad decision. I've seen you all listen. Thank you for listening to us all tonight. Thank you all for being here and speaking. I'm sorry that your colleagues are throwing you under the bus with this. But please continue to vote no on North Park. Thank you.
Don't see any hands raised via Zoom, so we'll keep going in here until we have it. We just had one just popped up, but then we got, it's okay. You're here, so we'll go back.
Good evening, Council. My name is Caden Smith. I'm a resident of the county, but more importantly, a taxpayer. I have 5 points to make, so I gotta go quickly. So first, I'm gonna respond to the commissioner's comments, and I wanna say why I have to respond is because I can't attend a 10 a.m. meeting on a Thursday. Like most of the people here, I work on Thursdays and I don't have time, and I'm often late to these meetings because I work until 5 p.m. So firstly, Commissioner Medeiros' comments. She says she wants to work collaboratively, but if the council voted no in October, why are you bringing it back again? Shouldn't you bring something different? It doesn't sound like you're working collaboratively to me. And like other people said, if the council voted no, I just don't believe the commissioners can really accept that, and that's why they're continuously bringing this back. And then I'll also highlight the grip that the commissioners have on the government. When the sheriff turns to Commissioner Medeiros in her personal life as an attorney, rather than the two attorneys that I'm looking at over on the side table over here, because the sheriff and the commissioners are really tight apparently. My second point on to Commissioner Thomas, the fact that she left the room because the meetings are at 10 a.m. because she doesn't want to hear from the public, and she doesn't want to hear from the public now because she left the room. And to restate, she's been in county government since 2008. Isn't that when the lawsuit started? And now she wants the council to solve the problems in 2 seconds. And thirdly, I'll go into public transit, which is something I reiterated before, and Commissioner Thomas doesn't know how to solve it. She admitted that we'll figure it out later, but why should I figure it out later? I'd like to know what I'm voting on now. And she was like, I don't want to have a bus line to a cornfield. I'm sorry, if we're going to have a bus line, isn't it going to go to more places than a cornfield? I just feel like Commissioner Thomas doesn't understand how public transit works, which is honestly frightening. And also just to add that the location is just abysmal. We're just going to have sprawling neighborhoods and large interstates, which just decreases public safety and walkability to the jail. as many people said, I'm willing to vote yes on something, but I think the Thompson site looks a lot more likely because we do need to solve something quickly. Fourthly, back to the federal judge issue, the threat of a federal judge is way more likely than we think. And I'm honestly looking forward to the fact, instead of paying $200 million in taxpayers because I don't want my taxes to increase, I think that's one thing that I can agree with the commissioners on. And finally, before my time runs out, I'll reiterate, in case you forgot what I was saying, I would like a vote no. I agree with what Councilmember Isabel Piedmont Smith said, but I'm going to disagree with one thing. When she said she wasn't envious, I actually am, because I would sit in your seat and vote no. So I want you to consider that. Thank you.
Okay, I'll pop back to Teams, and if there are other people that want to raise their hand via Teams and want to speak, go ahead and do that. Don Johnson, unmute yourself, and you'll have up to 3 minutes.
Hello, thank you for this opportunity. I'm not going to repeat any of the comments previously made urging you to vote no again. I want to make just one additional point. So I'm Dawn Johnson. I'm a constitutional law professor at Indiana University. And I've worked many years at the Department of Justice, United States Department of Justice. I just want to put this in a national context briefly and say I started my career as a lawyer for the American Civil Liberties Union back in 1988. The national organization, the national office. And at that time, I actually worked with the ACLU of Indiana on at least 3 cases. But going back to the national position that I believe reflects the view of our community in Monroe County, the National ACLU, if you look at their website, is very clear about what we should be doing, and I agree completely about this. We should be reducing the rate of incarceration and focusing our resources on that. Addiction services, affordable housing. And I just want to read just a couple sentences from the ACLU national website on mass incarceration. And here's a quote. I urge you all to look at the full statement. Despite making up close to 5% of the population of the world, the U.S. has more than 20% of the world's prison population. Since 1970, our incarcerated population has increased by 500%. It includes our prison system costs taxpayers $80 billion per year. This money should be spent building up, not further harming communities. Investments, not incarceration, is how we improve safety. So, of course, we need a constitutional jail. But what we should be doing and should have been doing, and now let's start today, is investing in decreasing the number of our fellow residents that we incarcerate. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Anybody else on Teams that would like to make comment? Okay, so while people deliberate on Teams, because there's lots of y'all out there, I'll come back to the room here. So if you would like to make comment, please go ahead and step up.
Excuse me. My name is Christian Easton. My wife, Susan, spoke earlier. I was the last to speak last week, I think. I'm probably going to say almost exactly the same thing. The sheriff needs a jail. So you had a chance last week to take a vote and be 2 weeks ahead of the game. Moving down this, I mean, I don't understand. You can't even get the vote right. I mean, so now we're here again doing this, talking about this. I thought that the council had decided last week what they thought about the North Park, they could have then moved on to where is the jail going to be? I worked in this town as a police officer for 32 years. I trained officers. I did a lot of things. I was in the jail and out of the jail. I go to jail and ministry and stuff like that. So I think I know how all that stuff works. A lot of people get their own ticket to jail because they evidently want to go there. Policemen don't drive down the street looking for people to grab. They're not going around looking for trouble to throw somebody in a jail to overcrowd the jail. They're just not doing that. That just happens to be part of life right now, and it's getting worse instead of better. And so the jail will have to be a little larger, and I think the facility needs to have all the tools there nearby for the court, for the offices that are going to be in that jail, or need to furnish the people in the jail their rights. They have to go to court. They have to have the hearing. They need judges. They need public defenders, and they need medical attention. Now, as far as the other things that have been mentioned, I don't know about taking them out of jail and letting them be told the things that they should have known to do in public to begin with. But I think if they want to, the jail can accommodate that, that would be right. But those are the things that need to be designed into the new facility and be put in place, and realize that then from that point on, if you don't want the thing to be gone, like some people say 2 years, it'll be. If you want it to be gone in 50 years, then, I mean, you start taking care of it, because you can make that building last. They have lasted. If they're designed right and you get in and you build it right, and then put the money in the staff and in the way it's operated, it can work. But it can't be done if you don't start. And I'm urging you to quit talking about it and start doing it, okay? This is probably the last time you ought to talk about this and have a vote, have a lot of people come up here and stand and vent and frustrate about the way things go in life. I know the man's got, he would like to see North Park because it's close to being decided. It's not. You have property. I live in North Park. I don't care if you build there. But I just think that if you've already got something, you better start building on it now. And thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Next up in the room.
Hi, my name is Stacy Dosky, and I want to thank you guys for letting us speak again. I was here 2 weeks ago, and I'm really not going to repeat everything that I said last week. There's a lot. I'm going to beg you to vote no and to continue. I know that you've done that in the past, and it's ridiculous that we're here again. To the county commissioners, the fact that you brought up...
You need to use your mic.
The fact that you brought up this lawsuit and basically threatening everybody about what's going to happen and what could happen and all of these things is a joke, because this could have been resolved months ago, years ago. When they said no to this site, another site could have already been selected. We could have been moving forward instead of just sitting here not doing anything. They've already said no. The people have already said no. And yet here we are. You've brought it back up. I do believe that you need resources, space, services. We have the Thompson site. It's out there. Why are we spending more money, throwing more money away? And I know I said I wasn't going to talk about what I said last week or 2 weeks ago, but I really just want to thank you guys for the support that you've given us in the past, and I really hope that you're listening to the community and you're voting with your hearts and that you vote no. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Henry. I'm a Monroe County resident. We heard that the sheriff needs a jail, and the sheriff has a jail. It's in terrible shape, and it did not get that way overnight. This entire process has been a slow motion train wreck over years, where the jail we have has ended up in this current condition. And now we feel that we have an emergency and we have to act. The commissioners have said that we have to play the hand we're dealt, and yet it seems at every opportunity they draw 3 more cards and now they've given us an Uno hand full of problem cards. It's called going on tilt. If we don't have a good hand, and I don't believe North Park is a good hand, I urge the council to vote no on North Park. There isn't an easy solution to this problem, but the fact that it has dragged on for so long means that rather than abdication, the recognition that the current organs of government in this county are not able to reach a workable solution, maybe a federal judge has to tie-break that, because we have a responsibility to our residents who are incarcerated to put them in a safe and humane facility. If we don't have that, we have to provide it. Spending an inordinate amount of money on the North Park site is no solution at all to the actual problem. It just creates much larger, bigger problems down the road. So I urge the council to vote no on it. The last comment was Commissioner Madera specifically has repeatedly said, both online and in previous meetings and here, that the lawsuit is a foregone conclusion. We don't have a leg to stand on. And at the same time seems to be saying, and yet we're going to have to spend a ludicrous amount of money continuing to fight the lawsuit that we know we can't win. If we can't win the lawsuit, the responsible action would be to take the shortest possible path to concede that lawsuit and move on to whatever actions a federal judge enforces on the county. It would be ridiculously irresponsible to continue to burn more taxpayer money trying to fight a lawsuit that we've already admitted we can't win. So I urge the council to vote no on North Park. Thank you.
I'll go to one more here, and then it looks like we got a hand raised via Teams.
Steve Volan. The commissioners are solely responsible for initiating the construction of a jail. The county council did not have authority to draw up plans and present them. When you rejected this proposal, did they work assiduously to present another option? Did they do any soul searching to ask why so many of their prior proposals were rejected? Did they listen to anyone? They did not. They came back to you with the same objectionable proposal. There is no one else who prefers this location for a jail. The sheriff will tell you we need a jail. The newest commissioner will tell you we no longer have a choice. Their responses are understandable. Yet those do not constitute endorsements of this site as inherently good. They're simply attempts to deal with the problem the other commissioners created. Because no one has said this site is preferable on the merits except Commissioners Thomas and Jones. They ignored the will of this body and have doubled down. For years, they've ignored the opinions of everyone else who weighed in on the merits. I was a city council member when the commissioners floated Fullerton Pike as a location. That body, the city council, rejected the site 9-0, which is really saying something about that contentious body. But it wasn't because the city collectively was unwilling to work with the commissioners. We all were. I personally authored the ordinance allowing Bloomington Transit to go outside the city. Thompson was always a viable site that could have been converted long ago. It was that the commissioners weren't even willing to follow the spirit of our zoning law, let alone the letter. It was because they didn't ask, what can we get done together? They asked, why can't you do what we say? Either the commissioners aren't competent to fulfill their duties, or they've been dealing with you in bad faith. They're counting on you to overlook their failure of imagination, their incompetence, their many years of unwillingness to brook dissent, however politely. If you approve this, you'll show that if the commissioners drag their feet long enough, they'll get their druthers in the face of all evidence that shows it's a bad idea. You'll reward their negligence, their intransigence, even their contempt. For you, for the city of Bloomington, the people of Monroe County, and most of all, the incarcerated, whom the commissioners could have spared an unconstitutional jail years ago if only they had applied an ounce of diplomacy. Whatever your vote tonight, do not take responsibility for a failure that rests solely with the commissioners. Send the message that the county must not be subjected to a reorganization of its physical plant that will be permanent, catastrophic, and avoidable. If this was the best they had to offer, let their next act be to send a message that might get the ACLU to back off. Let them do the honorable thing and resign their seats. Thank you.
Okay, we will go back to teams. So Jason Funk, please go ahead and unmute and you'll have up to 3 minutes. Jason, you should be able to unmute. I am going to move on to the other public comment, and then we'll circle back to Jason. Tracy, you should also be able to unmute, state your name for the record, and you'll have it to 3 minutes.
Hi, yes. My name is Tracy Hutchings-Getz. Hi. I'm actually calling in from the airport because this is so important to me. I testified previously in opposition to the North Park location and shared some of my family's own experience, which was really about underscoring the human impact of moving these services out away from where the majority of people in the county live and the majority of services reside. So if you'll recall, my Uncle Wally, who had been experiencing homelessness at the time, struggled with addiction, struggled with jail incarceration, never was actually sent, like convicted, but spent a lot of time in and out of jails because he was someone who was struggling with his mental health and his addiction. And he is someone who walking home tripped and fell and broke his neck. And these are the kinds of experiences that if we commit to this North Park location are going to increase for our residents and their loved ones if we insist on building far away from where people are and the services that they need. So I'm just calling in again to underscore my opposition to this particular location and my profound disappointment and frustration that we have not yet been able to find a solution when this litigation has been ongoing for, over a decade at this point. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna go back to Jason. Are you able to unmute? TSD, are we able to help him? TSD, hello. Okay. Is he able to unmute TSD or? Okay. All right. So I'm gonna pop back over while that's still a work in progress and see if there's anybody else that's here that want to make public comment in the Nat U Hill room. Okay. Last. Okay. I will pop back over to Teams to see if there's anybody on Teams that would like to make final public comment on this item. And to see if screen name Jason Funk is still able to unmute and make public comment. Oh, okay. I don't want to take away anybody's ability to not be able to speak. Okay. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. And I'm going to bring it back to council members for final questions and or comments before we take a vote on this. Yes, Councilor Iverson.
I'd like to offer my statement.
Sure.
Thank you, Madam President. I am optimistic about the future of Monroe County. What follows are my thoughts on this problem. This window of opportunity presented in this ordinance, in my mind, is the only path forward in 17 years of decrepit discussion and move us toward action based on an ancient requirement that we might do justice, that we might love mercy, and that we might walk humbly. Ahead of this vote, I have done what I feel is my due diligence. I have discussed this vote with as many constituents as I can, from as many diverse backgrounds as I can. This includes clergy, first responders, mental health professionals, public safety professionals, county employees, former and current elected officials, attorneys, and more. What I'm hearing from folks out in the first district is they want us to end 17 years of indecision. What I'm hearing is that they want action. What I detail now is the way that I see this issue through an intersectionality lens. Thanks to these constituent conversations, I now think in 4 commingled categories: financing, timing, the law, and community values. I hope that you'll agree with me that affirmative action tonight is not the ideal choice, but it is the optimal one. First, finances. We do have a viable fiscal path forward. And this is the cheapest option for the people of Monroe County. I call this the affirmative option. In October 2025, this body correctly and unanimously rejected a purchase agreement for this property because the state restricted our funding. We simply could not afford the jail project as designed. This would change just 6 months later. At the April 28th, 2026 meeting, this council meeting, a path opened. In the presentation with the Financial Solutions Group, our community learned about a $135 million bond. Council asked questions, and it was clear that there was an opportunity to move forward. The media covered this topic. Katz recorded it. It was reposted on YouTube. I wrote an explainer on my website, and this financing allows us to at last, after 17 years, move forward. There is a counter option that relies on litigation to solve this problem. This is the litigation option. This option is initially attractive because it offers a solution that avoids commissioner control. But on further examination, the litigation option is much more costly. Vote would mean that the following costs we added to the taxpayer burden: millions of dollars in current building renovations throughout the lawsuits, millions of dollars in prisoner transfers throughout the lawsuits, and millions of dollars in legal fees. And what happens at the end of litigation? We will still have construction costs. We will still have bond interest to pay. We will still have other costs associated with various locations to pay. The point is that adding no adds dollar amounts, millions of dollars, to an already outrageous budget. But since I mentioned the deadline, let me move on to timing, my second point. It's the complicated project. We all know this. We've been talking about it for 17 years, but now an opening does appear, converging at least 4 deadlines in an opportunity to act. And for those of you who don't think that we have a reason to act other than false urgency, the most urgent deadline is the most important to me. This deadline has passed. Time is up. This is the deadline set by those who are the most forgotten. This is the deadline set by our neighbors who are most ignored. It is those who are incarcerated. The 263 persons who slept in the jail last night. They are experiencing the worst harms, and has been explained over and over again by those working in this facility. We need to move folks out now. We don't have time to wait for the litigation option. We are far, far behind in this inmate deadline, and action is needed tonight. The second clear deadline is the ACLU deadline. We've talked about this ad nauseum. I don't need to discuss it. The third is the legislative deadline. According to both FSG and, Barnes and Thornburg, they recommend action before the biannual budget session later this year. Only the affirmative option allows us to stay on track with the legislative timeline. The final deadline is the lengthy bonding timeline. According to Barnes and Thornburg, the bonding process, the incorporation of a building corporation, the leasing processes, these, complicated in and of themselves, will take up to 5 months to complete. Thus, action is recommended by July, meaning that our action tonight on the purchase agreement allows us to adhere to this timeline. It should be clear now that I feel that the window for action is tonight. It has to be tonight. The litigation option misses every single one of these deadlines. And the most egregious part in my mind is that a vote for this option looks into the eyes of those hundreds of people that slept in the jail last night and says that you are still forgotten. The litigation option has no timelines. And for those of you saying, oh, hold on, Peter, hold on. You're being too binary. There's more than two options. I appreciate this, and I understand that we're looking at more than one location, but we haven't seen a viable timeline for any other location. We haven't seen a timeline for Thompson. We haven't seen a timeline for Fullerton. We don't have a timeline for the litigation option that we can go to, the sheriff or the correctional officers to say, this is how much longer you have to wait. We do have a timeline for this ordinance. We do know how long folks are going to have to linger in the jail. From a purely timeline perspective, my vote is to stop ignoring the inmates and those that work in this building. And my vote is to give hope that this council understands that this hard decision is a just decision. Now let me move on to my fourth point, my final point, which is community values. I reflected on this at a past church service that I attended, where there's a passage that says that I am eager to do good. And I wanted to raise this because I think that's what unifies all of us in this room. I think that all of us come to the table with the desire to do good. I've seen it in the JFAC meetings. I've seen it in numerous meetings that we've been in together, that there is a desire to do good. And in fact, I wanted to highlight that in 2023, together with a lot of people in this room, we enumerated community values using the sequential intercept model. We know where we need to go. Community services, and some of you are in this audience right now that are doing great work. Re-entry from jail. How do we do this and how do we do it better? Community corrections has the right people right now. They just need more resources. Diversity, equity, inclusion. We know that there's an overrepresentation of African Americans in our jail. We know that ICE is racially profiling people on the streets in our cities. Treatment. The Substance Use Disorder Advisory Commission is right now putting the finishing drafts on recommendations to the county commissioners for treatment facilities. We are putting dollar amounts on facilities as we speak. That is coming. The work also made recommendations regarding justice building system-wide topics. We know that our community values, these 7 areas of values, are important long-term work. And we know that our time on this dais in public service is short, that we can only do the best while we're here. But friends, we cannot continue to enact these community value recommendations if we spend 3 more years arguing, not in front of the public, not in recorded sessions, but in court. We must act affirmatively to do justice. The time for debate is over. The time to do is now. So let me conclude that I think it's clear that I plan to vote yes on this ordinance because I believe that the confluence of financing, timing, local control, and community values demand that we vote and act decisively, not because of a false urgency, but because and on behalf of those incarcerated. My vision is that we can influence decisions toward mercy, that this council can end 17 years of stalemate by doing justice, that this council can move with humility, knowing that our role in this messy process is important. And let me repeat, there are no ideal choices here. This is a terrible decision to be making right now. A vote for the litigation option is kicking the can down the road at least 3 years. A vote for the affirmative option presents a solution that perpetuates a system that jails too many people. There are no ideal solutions to us tonight, but there is a marginally optimal one. This evening, we have a viable path forward to end 17 years of stalemate. Sit with that for a second. We have an opportunity to end a stalemate that predates all of our service. It's available today, And I affirmatively to do justice, to love mercy while walking humbly is now. Thank you, Madam President.
Councilor Hawk, did you want?
Forward to hearing what others said. We have not heard from Councilmember Deckard, but he wasn't present at our last meeting, and we missed you. So I'll be real polite.
Sure, I'll go and those that wish to speak can speak. So go ahead.
First, I wrote some notes out here, about 3 pages. I never read anything for anyone that's ever watched me in a meeting, and I'm going to try that for once because I think it's an important night, and we've heard a lot of tremendous comments. And I want to thank all the constituents that have weighed in on this. Some of you over the years, I see Seth out there, others at different times. I want to thank you for that. I also want to thank the county officials who have reached out to me numerous times over the weeks, and particularly the last week, with a whole range of opinions on this purchase agreement. It is not easy for any constituent to walk into a room like this or go on to a Teams meeting like that and to talk. It's not. And I can remember when I was in the opposite side of that, it can be intimidating, not to mention the time required to track something we struggled to track and struggle to follow is hard enough. But I do appreciate all those emails, phone calls, public comments. And when I was council president, and Councilor Crossley is our president in her second year has really kept this up, I always was insistent that we welcome public comments, that the day the Nat U Hill doesn't have people in it is the day that we probably need to call it quits on this democracy, but there's something here worth fighting for. My day job did take me away at our last council meeting. I have earnestly watched those proceedings. I listened to all those thoughts. So everyone that said something, I heard that, I read your emails, and I've seen that. We have been talking about this a long time. Some of the comments that I've heard over the years, I could almost kind of say, well, I think that this is going to go like this. And sometimes things surprise me so much that people say that I think, I haven't heard that like that. And that's why we have public comment. We've had supporters and detractors from this very purchase agreement. And to me, tonight is about this purchase agreement. I voted no on the original purchase agreement last October. It's hard to believe it was last October. I did so at that time because a whole host of issues vexed the council members, and not all those reasons were the same. Regardless of those opinions that each of those council members had, we always have to remember this. This gets lost in the shuffle. And I'll say this as a person that's been a candidate for another office in recent months. It should never be lost that county council members truly represent the voice of taxpayers before significant public decisions. They're the 7 souls that say, on that funding, based on that whole crowd of 140,000 behind me, some that voted for and some that voted against, I think we need to do that. This is not an easy burden to just kind of shrug off. A county council has to consider how things are funded, what that looks like, and where that gets to. And some of these counselors here have heard, some of you in the public have heard me say, any movement forward has to get to 4 votes in this body out of 7. It has to get to 2 votes in the other body, the commissioners. And of course, the sheriff, whose input we've heard throughout this process and leadership we've seen, has weighed in over time, but those are kind of the bodies. Anything that's not hitting 4, hitting 2, and getting a nod out of that sheriff is sort of like, I don't know, putting water on that light socket over there. And unfortunately, the county, we spend a lot of time putting water on light sockets. And I wish that weren't so. I wish I could change that, but it's probably the nature of how we're built when the state built us this way. But regardless, in October, there was concern. At that time, it was a unanimous agreement of council not to move forward. And in time, we've continued to hear opinions from taxpayers regarding this site, that some of which that was added into tonight, that keep the community from having peace with the North Park site. We've heard that regardless. I think much of that discord comes from many comments and questions we continue to get. And I'm not going to belabor all of them because this audience covered them well, but logistically, there are strong discussions of which folks are not satisfied. And I would have to bet my mortgage tonight to say, based on conversations I've had, based on furrowed brows, that four votes are not necessarily forthcoming to have peace on some of this. I have kept an open mind. I've suspended judgment. I've tried to put this matter in the best light. Ultimately, this evening, I will vote the way I voted in October, and I will vote no. That said, I want to be clear. By my nature, the nature of how I think, and you can hear this 4 and this 2, which I've said over and over, and the sheriff in the mix with that, I believe you solve problems, you don't extend them. And so while I appreciate very much what my colleague, Councilor Iverson, who's a strong leader and a tremendous voice for this council, has said about tonight, to me, we're continuing to solve this problem. I'm sure that many people will say voting no extends the problem, and that's fair. I'll take that. I'll take that punch on the chin. But respectfully, that zero-sum kind of argument is what's killing us in politics and in this county, particularly when we're in a time when people are not only counting us on to move, but honor a constitution which says you have to move. One thing I have said consistently in this process, or I've tried, our sheriff has done a remarkable job in improving our jail. He's gone above, beyond, and remarkably transparent in talking about the changes that have been made. His staff comes in here with passion, including the commander there. They come in here with a passion that I would hope everyone would have for their work, and that's made a huge difference. No one can reasonably question that reality, but a solution to this problem to get to 4 here, 2 in the other, has to be feasible, believable, fiscally sustainable. It has to contend with long-term realities and bring peace for folks making that decision. And too often, friends, too often I hear murmurings that say it's a decent, and well, I don't know that it's a decent choice, but it's got a lot of issues. I don't know how this is going to work. That's not been put to peace, okay? So the solution that we come up with has to have answers to big questions on logistics within the community, and it has to ultimately get to that passage. So again, peace comes in the form of 4 here, 2 in there. Now, some people say, well, when you want 4 here and 2 there on an ideal site, that's looking for perfection. That's not perfection. Perfection would be 7 here, 3 there. And if perfection is so hard that we can't get to majority vote, we need to redefine our use of perfection, and we got to work harder. So what do we do now? In my opinion, I'm sorry for going so long here, but I want to make sure I cover what I need to. I think we move forward in earnest, continuing our talks between what site works for a location. We've had before us North Park 4 times, 3, 4 times. It's clearly not working. And I wish, for all the passion around it, I wish I had a different answer, but we've had colleagues that have mentioned the Thompson site. I remember our Fullerton discussion, and I have to admit that while both of those sites have problems, I think that eyesight on them changes over time as we continue to examine this. If I had a preference there, and I know this is probably not popular with a lot of folks, to me it's more Fullerton than not. because I think that there's issues that we've not addressed. But again, regardless of what I think, one of these sites has to get to 4 here and 2 in the other body with agreement with that, with our sheriff. A newer city council has indicated it wants to help. We've heard the mayor weigh in and President Asari. We've also heard from other council members that have other thoughts. I take that on face value that they want to help, that they want to do things. They've talked about expediting, but regardless, a willingness to get to a solution wherever it is, I think doesn't end tonight on one vote. I think it continues towards what we do. And the last thing I'll just say, and then I'm going to shut up. We all talk a lot about collaboration. I spent just the last 4 or 5 months talking about collaboration. Some people like that, some people doubt it. Tonight I've heard it 3 million times. And collaboration means that you got one body offering it to something to another body offering it back, and a give and take there with that, and a whole lot of host of other actors. The county has got to make that the order of the day. Friends, we are spending a lot, all our bodies are spending a long time in public meetings where things aren't going well. And I think it's pretty predictable if that collaborative tone doesn't start at the right time, in the right place, among all people. So with that, I'll be quiet. Thank you.
I'm just going to go over.
Okay. I have like notes put everywhere. And I think that I've, like my colleagues, I've been thinking about what are the key important considerations when you're faced with a decision that feels as big as this one. And I think what I go to is the idea of representation, like Councilor Deckard said. We represent you, we represent our neighbors, we represent the community, we represent the folks living and working in the jail. And I go to, what would Monroe County do? What if this were put out there, what would the decision of the people be? And I think months, if not actually years, of seeking out input, talking with folks about the problems and the concerns with our jail and our criminal justice system as a whole has really been a journey and has really informed, I think, where we are tonight. Yeah, it's been a lot, and it's been important. But the other part, of course, of being on county council is the idea of fiscal stewardship. You've heard this already, and I think that's a mandate that we have to live up to if we're going to spend vast amounts of money. And no mistake, we will. That's what, either way. It should be for the things that reflect our values. It should be for what we want to see in our community. So let's be clear, our community is going to pay the price regardless. Income taxes will be the revenue source, and no matter which route we take, there will be more money than most of us think is reasonable spent to solve these very complicated problems. It's a daunting reality. It is reality. So that brings us to, if we're spending the money and we want it to be, reflective of values and the community values, how are we doing that? We're collecting evidence, we're thinking empathetically. And that's sort of my third consideration in all of the decisions is, how do I balance evidence and empathy? And really, I know that a vote against this site is is going to, it's going to cost a lot of money, and that doesn't change, you know, that's not all that different to me from a vote for this site. The current jail, the conditions there, the people working there and residing there, all of that it weighs on my soul. It really does. And it must be fixed. And it must be fixed quickly. And yes, we've wasted a lot of time, most notably since our council vote in October. If you ask me, I think that we've squandered several months where we could have really been working on fixing these problems. These problems and the remedies for them must be done on a continual basis, while we also are collaboratively working on the long-term solution that is actively and transparently undertaken. I think we can do that. I don't see it as a dichotomy of North Park or we just give up. This is a process, and we're working through it. We have no timeline for Thompson, per Councilor Iverson, or other locations. And that's because we have not been using that collaborative, active, transparent approach. And I'm aghast and appalled, and it has not been the approach of those who hold the cards moving forward. Sincerely, that my vote no with my colleagues' vote no to action, and I hope that it's a clear message that we want a solution, but North Park is not the right solution. Thanks.
I'm the newbie here still. And I understand that I could vote yes. I understand I could vote no, and it probably wouldn't change much of anything here. But I want to go on the record of saying that I come from a representative world. So I was in the union business, representing people on the job for a very long time, either with the union itself or in the community, representing people on the job, place from workplaces, whatever it was they needed, I got involved in. And so if I put my representative hat on, and that's my most familiar hat, I vote no. I don't think that having it far away, as we've heard others tonight and before, and all during emails or texts or whatever that I've gotten messages of, I don't think it's the right service for the community. I just don't. It really doesn't have anything to do with the fact that that North Park is there and it's on the way to Ellisville. Has everything to the fact that it's far from services for me. It's just far. People can't get, we heard testimony this evening about how that 2 blocks made such a difference in a life. Well, I don't want to be on record as not supporting something that could help someone. And I think being closer to those services is very important to me. I was at United Way in some capacity for 25 years. They're working with labor in United Way or working on the board with United Way. And so for me, it's about services. For me, it's about, and I'm like Councilor Wiltz said, we have to get what we have now fixed. We can't go through this whole thing of not taking care of the people who work in the current Justice Building, as well as who are inmates in that building. We have to figure out right now, going forward, and make a commitment to do so, to remedy the situation at the same time while we find another site immediately and go forward. So I'm all about going forward.
Councilor Hawk, I'll go to you before I go to Councilmember Henry. Hello.
Good evening, everybody. And thank you for everyone's words in the room, my colleagues, our county government partners, and the public. I want to start by saying and directing my attention to the public this evening, who's spent time in trying to understand this issue in the press and in the room. I think my vote is well known. I've been a no vote on this since before I became an elected official. And I think tonight, back to October and a promise that I made to Charlotte Zitlow and working through and maintaining our community values to make sure we do not put this facility at North Park. And I hope tonight we see through what Charlotte would do. And I think that's really important to bring into this room again. Again, we have to bring it into this room. I want to say I don't question the sincerity of my colleagues in the city, in the county, of their views and their concerns about people in the jail today, about the ethics that we've been put into. No one doubts that the conditions in the current jail are serious. The people living there and working there deserve safety, they deserve dignity, they deserve constitutional conditions. No one's disputing that. But what is a dispute is the urgency, and whether or not that urgency has been manufactured, has been created, and forcing a decision of this body and its fiscal authority to help our community and our taxpayers make the best decisions that we can for the community. So I want to focus my attention on our duty, on that question of fiscal oversight, which, as Councilor Wiltz pointed out, we've been denied on many occasions because we never get all the information. Things are handed out piecemeal. We get a transportation plan sent out in an email right before Memorial Day weekend that's shared with council but not the public, that may or may not be an answer. This way of doing business has to end, and I think our oversight responsibility is the first stepping stone to getting that, regardless of lawsuits. It has been alleged that we will lose local control, but I look at the public and tell you, I don't think you've ever quite had local control over this project. I certainly don't believe the county council has had local control over this project. When people talk about local control, I want to know whose control they're speaking of. And I do believe it is the Board of Commissioners, the longer they've sat there, that are concerned that stakeholders that have contrary opinions cannot voice them or put them into the conversation. I've heard members of City Council this evening, going back a decade or more, speak to their frustration about being a stakeholder with interest that has been kept outside that door. So local control is an interesting concept as we move forward. But here's where I land, and I think on the fiscal questions that we have asked for weeks now about valuation assumptions and land use assumptions and the realities of infrastructure and the operational impacts that the sheriff has raised. We've only asked for the cost of running this facility for over a year. And what the public forgets is that one of the reasons we voted no in October of 25 was it took a year to get information out of the Board of Commissioners and DLZ, the designers of the facility, of the rising costs and why they were rising. We didn't have the information to work with then. I don't believe we're going to have that information working forward in good faith, which leads me to my last thought, and it really does address the authors of the letter that came out this afternoon. No one doubts, as Councilor Deckard has pointed out, the need for collaboration in the county. But to me, collaboration without any compromise at all is not consensus building. It is a little more than just painting public comity over consciousness, and that is the part that I have a hard time with. So let us collaborate, but not at the tail end of a decision already made, but one that we really do need to make together, including the voices in this room that want to see that Monroe County answer to this problem. I don't want to go on and make this a debate club evening. I think that there has been legion of words dumped in social media and in this room, and the community deserves the full debate someday as to why and how we got here. But the only thing I got to worry about tonight is the fact that the taxpayers of this community, especially working people, they're going to be asked to pay not for one but two phases at a project that will eventually reach $400 million with interest over 20 years is too much of a burden for working people in this community that cannot afford groceries or gas at this time. I'm a no vote, and I continue to be a no vote. Thank you very much.
I prayed about this God was listening. I do believe that the choice that for the people that's in that jail now and the ones who'll be there in the future is one that we have to make with full knowledge that we save millions going someplace else, going closer to services. Those millions can be spent on services within that jail. I really believe that this was meant to go to a location closer to services. And I'm just grateful for the people who showed up to say, let's get it closer to services. And I am so thankful for the council colleagues here because, believe me, this has not been an easy road. It really has not. I agree that this is not just a no to North Park. This is a yes to moving forward in the future, and we need to make a decision on another location, and I mean quickly. I think we've already heard, and I appreciate what Councilmember Deckard had to say, because he recalls that when we put the offer in on Fullerton, we had the sheriff on board for Fullerton, we had the courts on board for Fullerton, we had the county commissioners on board for Fullerton, we had the county council on board for Fullerton. The offer was made, the seller, we were, go to the seller agreed to it, it was all ready to go. At the time, under a different administration, the city planning said no. That does not mean they would say no now. But I've been told that the county commissioners had not even, unless I spoke with the mayor said nobody had been to even inquire from the county. So that is a lack of moving forward with options. Now, Thompson's already paid for. If that would work, that's fine. That's close to services, etc. But if what we've got to do is get all of those people to agree to move forward, if it takes Fullerton, boy, I'm on board for that, if that's what it takes. And thank you, everyone, for being here tonight.
Okay, so I guess it's my turn. I want to thank the public for coming back out yet again. And it looks like there were 33 people that showed up tonight, both via Teams and in person. And 2 weeks ago, we had a little under 25 people. You came back, and we heard you yet again. To the sheriff and his staff, for your presentation that you continue to give. I appreciate all the things that you have continued to do in our current jail with what little you have to make it as humane as possible. He shed a light, him and his staff shed a light on what it looked like beforehand. How it looks like now is complete night and day. And I think that should be you should be commended for that because you've tried. Here's a couple of things that I heard in this entire process. And it's very frustrating. As council president, it has been extremely frustrating to be in conversations where we feel, I think I heard from Commissioner Thomas, board members have not said which location they would like to have it be. And I guess I didn't think that we needed to spell it out because I think it has been, we have been continuous to say no to North Park. You cannot spell North Park without no. So that being said, that's where we are. And I don't have any notes or anything like that I have. I'm just kind of going off the cliff of my head here. So let me go ahead and spell it out for people. If you didn't already know, now you know because you're hearing it from me. I think we need to look at what we already have. The public has made comments about what we already have. Use what we already have. And years ago, that was a Thompson site. And I looked at some, all things considered, way back when studies were done, that was supposed to be a juvenile justice facility. And back then, in the term of the economic crisis that we were facing then, my times have changed, that we needed to do something then because costs will continue to skyrocket and will increase. And here we are, yet again, those costs are skyrocketing and increase with building and all of the above. I think with this whole fight of SB1, where we are kind of taking a look back, and some of us have continued to say that SB1 is the part where we've kind of, we can't do certain things and we're restricted with our funding and our lit rates and all of those different things. I think that was the moment where we collaboratively, not just talking it, but just actually doing it, could have said, let's take a step back here, let's see what we are really doing, and let us do with what we have. How many of us have struggled to make ends meet and have really different upbringings, whether it's now or past or whatever the case is, and you look at what you have in your cupboards, you've looked at what you have in your bank accounts, and you see the ask, and then you see what you actually have. And then you go, I think we need to make do with what we have. That's all of this right now. We gotta make do with what we have. It is fiscally irresponsible, with a capital I, for me to continue to say, let's say yes to a $11 million purchase agreement when we already have things that we could be using right now. So again, if it's not known, I would like for us to seriously look at, yet again, Thompson. And if you don't want me to keep talking about Thompson, please make me shut up so I don't have to keep talking about it. But I tend to believe that our city colleagues will work and what we need to do with getting that PUD. By the way, it is not county council that is responsible for submitting that PUD request. It is the commissioners that can do that. So if anybody has anything to say, then that is where that goes with. I think I heard something 2 weeks ago, or I almost kind of alluded that we were responsible. The hell we're not. No, we are not. We are not responsible for that. The last thing that I'll say, because I think we've heard enough and then we need to take our roll call vote here, is this has meant so much to me. This has been, I wake up literally at 5 a.m. and I go downstairs and I do all the things that I do in the morning before the rest of my house wakes up. I eat, sleep, breathe these conversations. Today is my son's birthday. I was supposed to be out of town. I canceled all plans to be in this room with all of y'all tonight. That's why it matters to me. The last thing I'll say about what really matters to me is a couple of weeks ago, we had our meeting on March 12th, or May 12th. And then the next day we had our Sophia Travis Grant Committee meeting. And I felt real broken. And at that moment, I was like, can I dare to say yes to North Park? Is there something that I can really find in my heart? Jen, is there, like, take all your biases away that you might have on this site, separate those from facts, and try to look at and see what you can say yes to. And Heather Bland actually came in our Sophia Travis Grant Committee. And she talked about a story about what New Life does for their clients, and it was the ask that she said, and she made a comment about a client needing to be helped, and then she said that the client was her. That has stuck with me for the past 2 weeks. And then Misty comes in here and wants to make everybody cry that has a heart, and say that 2 mile, like that 2 block radius can make and break a difference. I want my name to attach to not a building in this county that will screw people over for years to come, period. I am raising children in this community that will have to pay for this if they choose to live here, or if they want to ride off into the sunset and go somewhere else. That's what we really want people to do. That's what we really want people to take care of. I understand the human concept. I understand the people that are working in that building. Yes, I understand. So please don't anybody at me and try to tell me I don't, because I do. I take all things into consideration, but this is the part right now where I feel like this is a moment where we can either do well or we can screw it over. And I was a no back in October. I was a no back in a couple of weeks ago, and I'm still a no. But again, here's where I can say yes. I can say yes to true active collaboration. I can say yes to really getting down in the trenches, like today, like after this is all, well, maybe not today, because I literally want to spend a little bit of time with my son. Or the next day, where we can come back in a room and say, let's figure this out. Mr. Richardson back there has continued to say, let's talk about this, let's talk about this. I can tell you, we are trying to talk about it. Whether or not other people really want to come to the table and really want to talk to us about it, that's a whole other subject. But again, I think about, you know, as Councilmember Henry had said before, Charlotte's last conversations were, you all can do hard things. You just need to know how to do it and go do it. And since we are quoting songs, I really like to think of songs as well to get me through hard times. And a great lyricist by the name of Tupac said, remember one thing, for every dark night, there's a bright day. And after that, so no matter how hard it gets, stick your chest out, keep your head up and handle it. Colleagues, that's what we gotta keep doing. County commissioners, that's what we have to keep doing. City colleagues, sheriff here, like that's what we have to keep doing. Yes, I understand the repercussions. I come from people who understand consequences of many things that have come up against them. But this right here, this is where we are. So with that being said, may we please have a roll call vote?
Councillor Hawk.
I continue to be no. I was no from the beginning. First, second, third, and fourth vote, however many votes, it's been no.
Councillor Iverson.
Yes.
Councillor Deckard.
No.
Councillor Henry.
No.
Councillor Crossley.
No.
Councillor Wiltz.
No.
Councillor Feidel.
No.
Motion fails 1-6.
Council colleagues, as a way to make sure, like, we still got a couple of more things on the agenda. As a point of privilege, I want to be able to take a 5-minute recess. So I think we could just take a 5-minute recess. Let's be back at 8:06, promptly at 8:06, so we can finish up with this meeting. Thank you.
C-struck.
It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay.
Yeah, it'll be.
I'm so sorry. Do I need to stay around? So did you. I really appreciate it. I took great work. I took that. I'll take care. Yeah, there's no, I meant what I said, there's no right answer here. Folks in this room, yeah, they want us to vote that way, but there is, it's gonna be. I really appreciate what you all said. I do.
Sorry about that, Dave.
No worries.
Easy for anybody.
No.